What if the biggest turning points in history weren't famous wars, powerful kings, or grand revolutions, but invisible enemies? Most of us know about the Black Death, the massive shadow that swept across Europe in the middle of the 14th century. But history is filled with silent architects, forgotten epidemics that were just as devastating. Yet they have slipped through the cracks of our collective memory. These plagues didn't just take lives. They rewrote the rules of our world. They collapsed empires, changed how we pray, and even decided who would sit on the throne of England. Today, we are unearthing the stories of the outbreaks that history books often miss. Welcome to Dark History Know-It-All. Today, we explore the epidemics that shaped civilization. Our journey begins in the year 165. The Roman Empire is at the height of its power under the rule of the philosopher king Marcus Aurelius. Rome feels invincible. But deep in the eastern provinces, during the long siege, Roman soldiers found something far more dangerous than any enemy army. As the legions returned home, they brought a mysterious shadow with them. Historians today believe it was an early form of smallpox or measles, but to the Romans, it was an unexplained curse. At its peak, it is estimated that 2,000 people were lost every single day in the city of Rome alone. Think about that. The streets were silent, businesses closed, and the Roman military, the strongest force on earth, began to crumble. Entire legions were thinned out, leaving the borders of the empire wide open to invasion. Even the co-emperor, Lucius Verus, was taken by this sickness in the year 1. But the most fascinating impact wasn't the military loss. It was the psychological shift. People saw that their traditional gods were powerless against this invisible force. In the middle of this chaos, a small, fringe group known as the Christians began to grow. Why? Because while others fled, they stayed to care for the sick. This forgotten plague provided the cracks that eventually led to the fall of the Roman Empire and the rise of a new global faith. The world was never the same after 180. Fast forward to England in the year 1485. A new king, Henry VII, has just won the throne. But along with his victory came a terrifying, mysterious shadow known simply as the sweating sickness. This was one of the most frightening killers in history because of its speed. It was said that a person could be perfectly healthy at breakfast and gone by dinner. It started with a sudden sense of dread, followed by intense shivering, and then a strange, foul-smelling sweat that signaled the end. But there was something even weirder about this sickness. It seemed to prefer the wealthy. Unlike most plagues that targeted the poor in crowded cities, the sweat struck the upper classes, the lords, and the royals. King Henry VIII was so terrified of it that he spent his life running from castle to castle, obsessively washing his hands and avoiding everyone during an outbreak. In the year 1502, the sickness took the life of Arthur Tudor, Henry's older brother and the heir to the throne. If Arthur had lived, Henry VIII might never have become king. There would have been no split from the church, no 6 wives, and the entire history of the English-speaking world would be unrecognizable. Then, in 1551, after 5 major outbreaks, the sweating sickness vanished just as suddenly as it had appeared. To this day, science has no idea what it was. A virus, a toxin. It remains a ghost in the halls of history. Why did these events slip from our memory while the Black Death remains so famous? It's because the Black Death was a slow, grinding trauma that changed the economy for centuries. The Antonine Plague and the sweating sickness were sharp, sudden shocks. But these forgotten epidemics were the silent architects of our modern world. They forced cities to innovate. They led to the creation of the first public health systems. They taught us about isolation, the importance of clean water, and the need for medical research. Every time you see a modern hospital or a city with a sewer system, you are looking at a legacy of these ancient battles. We learned to survive through these dark chapters, even if we eventually forgot the names of the sicknesses themselves. History isn't just a list of dates and battles. It is the story of how we as humans have adapted to the world around us, especially the parts of the world we cannot see. The Antonine Plague and the sweating sickness show us that even the greatest empires and the most powerful kings are vulnerable to the invisible. They remind us that our society is shaped not just by what we build, but by how we respond when everything we know is threatened. The next time you walk through an old city or visit a museum, look for the silent stories. The shadows of the past are always there, if you know where to look. Thank you for watching this deep dive into history's forgotten plagues. If you found these stories as fascinating as I did, hit that like button and let me know in the comments, which historical mystery should we unearth next? Don't forget to subscribe to Dark History, Know It All, for more stories from the shadows. Remember, know the past, or be haunted by it. See you next time.